this computer. All right. Okay. So this is GameStop. This is the chart. And so I put this on a you can put this on a regular chart where it just goes up in a linear fashion, like 40 to 50 to 60, or you can put it on a logarithmic chart. Logarithmic works better when you have insane moves like this because like it accounts for all that kind of exponential movement. Because this thing literally went from like 60 cents to over $100 in the span of like 2 or 3 months. And this was I think it's this type of movement right here. That's probably what all this was, and we'll kind of zoom in there, but it's not like it's going to take several months for this to happen anyway. Because kind of like what we talked about earlier, the buildup has been so strong at this point, and the reason that this let's zoom in here for a second. Um, this is like the squeeze from 2020, and then like we've literally for almost literally 4 years, it's just been bouncing up and down in this chain. So it was a long downswing. Then you had Roaring Kitty come back. It hit the top of this channel, and then it just bounced for God knows how long, for about a year pretty much. So you've seen these moves go up, and the tighter this thing gets, the more explosive the next move ends up being. So really, my targets at this point, because there's like conflicting opinions on this. Like, okay, well, how far could it actually go? I think definitely all time high, so 120 ish. Um, my real range, like though, is somewhere between 200 and 600. There are people saying it could go higher, like, okay, this could go to the thousands and whatnot, which I don't see as unbelievable. But for what I need, 400 to 600, like you can live a great life off of if you somehow manage to catch it between 400 and 600, it's like you're set. You're pretty good. Depending on what you're holding, but the options just kind of helps to amplify that. That's the reason I say options over just buying the stock outright. The only downside to options is they can expire worthless if it doesn't hit that price by the date. But again, that's why I've been kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna start buying options this year pretty much and just keep on buying them because like I just want to be there when it happens. Like some people try to be very precise with like, okay, the timing of it. I was cool taking like L's for a little while, pretty much between like March and here, if they expired and whatnot, but that's fine. We'll just keep on with that going up. But overall, you just really let's go down to the weekly chart, kind of make it zoom in a little bit. There's not a ton to look at on the chart for real, and this is why I said like if it doesn't, if you just look at the chart, this isn't going to make a ton of sense because like you see all this activity from this was 2024, yeah. So this is when Roaring Kitty came back. You had that huge spike up to 60, all the way from it was like about $10 to $60 in the span of a couple weeks. So that's a huge move. And then you had the second move. What I think is going to happen is this is going to play out again similarly to where you're going to have a huge initial move, a pullback, and then another maybe smaller move. But this time I think it actually makes sense. We're kind of exiting this channel for the first time for real. And, actually, is that the first time we've been up there? Yeah, since like this initial down spike to where they pushed everything down, this is the first time that we've been up on this channel pretty much. So the top of it. So now that we're at the top, it's easier for it to break out to the top side. They kind of move in that direction. So I guess I'll talk about next, like why it's just been in such a tight range. Really, what it comes down to is like we understand that okay, well, this thing has been shorted by naked short sellers. They pretty much sold more. They sold stuff that they didn't even own, but unfortunately, they still have to pay on that stuff. So if this price goes up, it's really bad for them, and that's when you start getting margin calls and stuff starts coming unraveling very quickly. Um, so that's why I mean a lot of this has been very. You see, it's a very tight and compressed and controlled range for the last year. It's just been bouncing between $20, $30, $20, and then now we're outside of this range again. But you see, like really, the top ceiling has been this. It's been this downtrend that it's been in. So now that it's broken out, you come out, you have a retest, and that just means essentially it could just continue going up to the upside. So in terms of taking profit, I'm definitely going to be taking some profit around like, I don't know, 45 and 60, just like, 10% of what you got or whatever. And this goes for all of them. Like, Buck and GME on base or whatever else you got. The thing is, like, price is gonna be the primary mover for things. So GameStop's price is gonna be the primary mover. Then everything else moves along with it. So you see this whole time, like anytime GameStop moves, this thing moves too, or Buck or whatever else. So if I'm taking, I'm just like when GameStop's actual price hits like 40 or 60, I'm gonna take some profit. Then again at like 120 something, um, right around here. And then, like I said, anywhere between 200 and 400, that's when I start taking profit a lot more aggressively. And then maybe by the time that's done, if it's still in some type of range, that's when you just maybe leave like 10% to where for a crazy number. Like, oh, okay, well, this could go to 1,000 maybe if I believe. So I'll leave 10% on there for that. I guess what was I going to say about that? Obviously, with if you got options, you got to do something with those before June 20th. But depending on what your strike price is, like, if you're in the money, then you're good to hold it all the way up to June 20th and see what it does. But I think realistically, this could be a pretty fast move. It's I just don't see after all this time to where it's just like this slow kind of we've done the slow period. We've done all the slow stuff already. Now I do think we'll start seeing some type of faster move going into the end of the month. What else? I mean, that's pretty much on the chart. Like I said, there's not too much to talk on the chart because really it hasn't done anything. And you see these moving averages are like right on top of each other, but it has broken out of this chart technically. You got earnings next week. What is that? Wednesday afternoon it'll come out. That'll come out. I'm assuming Roaring Kitty will probably tweet somewhere in the next 2 weeks. It just seems plausible. Obviously, you can't really know anything there, but you'll kind of see. Yeah, that's pretty much it to talk about for there. But that's the big thing with like taking profits. It's just like I'm just gonna incrementally along the way. So like that first move, okay, well maybe you take some at 60, and then you take some at 125, which was the previous all time high. Then you start getting real aggressive if it gets into like 200s and 400s, 600 ranges. You should be mostly out. By like if it starts going above 600, you should be at least 80% of the way out with these ones. So go ahead and hide these. What I look
So,
at. Oh yeah,
quick
go ahead.
question.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much your whole basis of taking profit is the price of the GameStop stock itself, even for like Buck and GameStop on base, it's all based on the GameStop stock price. So like you don't have a particular price target for the meme coins specifically.
No, yeah, not specifically. Because there's not too much way of knowing in that case. Because like, the thing is like the meme coins could go a little bit longer if depending on how big the hype gets here, right? But what I at least from what I've seen with the meme coins, Buck is a little different because I Buck kind of actually front ran it a little bit. Went from what 1 million to about like 5 million. It touched 8 million at a certain point. Um, that will probably it's just from what I've seen over the last year is really these ones follow like GameStop on Solana or whatever. They spike when GameStop spikes. So I'm just going to assume that that's going to be the same case here. So yeah, once I'm going to be looking at this pretty heavily. So if I take 10% on the GameStop or the options or whatever, I'm taking 10% on everything. It's like GameStop on base and Buck and all that other stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't. Obviously you're not trying to bag hold here and round trip it. That would be the worst case scenario where you just like sit here and hold it for the whole time and then like nothing happens. Again, we're assuming like with options and whatnot, that is like kind of like that June 20th date, or some people have like July options. That's a little bit date constrained, but again, I think within the next 2 weeks, we'll definitely see that type of lift off. So I say all that to say, yes, I will be taking profits at strategic GameStop price numbers. Not necessarily. I don't have a target for Buck at this point. I know I said like buck to a buck, and that's like $1 billion, but I'm questioning right now if you get to 1 billion. I don't necessarily see it. But even if you don't, let's say you get to a couple tens of millions or a couple 100 million, that's still pretty good. That's still a good run. But just realistically looking at the quote unquote state of the trenches, there's not too many tokens that are in like the $1 billion valuation at this point. A lot of that money has shifted to Bitcoin, or really, I mean, it's kind of the trench has kind of cannibalized itself, if I'm being honest with you. But I still think Buck is probably a stronger one. I mean, you've seen it go like 500% in the last week or two, so that's kind of solid. So, does that answer your question, B?
Yeah, no, that made sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Um, So this is like what I look at too. Like this is like another website. They have a whole bunch of data. Like this is the GameStop stock itself. You can see all types of stuff. But the thing I tend to look at is like what are the shorts doing? What's like the options? Like what's all this other stuff? And you don't have to know really anything about options, but I just want to see like where's everything concentrated. So at this point, I'm looking at these numbers. You can see, all right, well, it seems that on June 20th, there seems to be a lot of people who are buying in total. Like if we look at the total out the money options at this point, that's like 870. Half of them fall on June 20th. So like you see all this happening. The puts are kind of like the same way. You got a ton concentrated right here. June 20th is actually they call it an OPEX date. So a lot of things happen there. A triple witching date too. So it's like you have futures expire and you have options expire, you have stock expire, um, all that type of stuff. Well, stock futures expire. Um, I just think you're going to see a lot of volatility going into June 20th because this is when like when stuff expires, you have to shift it around. So that's kind of what my thinking is there. Um, Other big thing that I look at is the borrow fee. Like how much does it cost to because there is some cost to short a stock. It's not free. It's not just the cost of the stock. It's like you have to pay some type of fee for that. So if this starts to spike, that's a good indication that something is happening. So this is, March 25th, we get the Bitcoin announcement. Okay, well, it costs a lot more to short it then at that point, and they definitely shorted it hard, but that's when everyone rushes for the gate at once to be able to do it. And let's look at this here. So like you see in May of last year when Roaring Kitty comes back, you see it's shot up to like 20% to be able to short GameStop because there was none left. If there's none left, it's gonna cost a lot. It's gonna be very scarce, and it's gonna cost a lot of money to be able to sell it. So this website is free too. So this is like something that you can watch too. So like if you see something to where it's spiking and okay, well now suddenly it's going down. You may want to sell here. So it's like, all right, well, I see that this has had a huge sell off at this point. Maybe I want to get out because it's getting less expensive to borrow it and short it. Um, so yeah, that's something I'll look at. So I'm just trying to see what are some of my things that I can look at in order to take profit accurately. So the only other well, there's a couple more that I look at, but this is the only other one I'll look at for this video is GMEU. So this is like it came out a couple months ago, like 2 months ago. It's like a 2x long daily target ETF. So basically, if GameStop goes up 5%, this one is kind of programmed to go up 10%. Um, in order to do that, though, they have to borrow. They have to get GameStop stock, and that's part of what an ETF is. Like they have to actually buy the underlying. What I see is that since this has come out, this thing has just run up. Like the borrow fee has just like continued to increase. So like it's very clear that they're utilizing this to kind of help short it in some type of way. I'm not fully well versed into how they do that, but you just see it's getting more and more expensive, which gives me a little bit of hope that all right, well something's about to shake pretty soon. We're gonna see something pretty soon because again, there's only a certain amount of expensiveness to where all right, well this suddenly doesn't even make any sense anymore. We're running out of money, we're hitting margin calls or whatever you want to call it. So I do think it'll be soon. The other one, this is unusual whales. Now I flip to a different one. Looking at GameStop, I can see. Let me click on that. Nope. Option screener. What was I looking for? Is the net flow? Yeah, I think that's it. I guess I got to sign in. There we go. So I mean, this is really, I mean, this is actually a pretty good website. It's kind of behind a paywall, pretty much. But you can see a lot of real time, like how is the money moving on the options chain. You don't have to know a ton about options, but you can follow kind of trends pretty much. So that's a screener. Let's look at the net flow for GME. What I'm looking at is, I don't even think this is the one that I want. It's a contract lookup. That's what I want to do. Contract lookup. So let's say like a June 20th call. This is kind of some stuff that I've been looking at. That's a bid ask. What I want to see is the net premium for the last 30 days. So what I see is, below this kind of price line, this zero line right here, that means they are selling something, and above it, that means they are buying something. So the net premium is negative or positive. So below this, if you see this, you follow the red line, like, okay, that means the red line is for puts. So that means they're selling puts. Puts basically means that, that it's the short contract pretty much. So if they're selling those off, that's bullish. Any red line that's above the zero, that's a little bearish. Green line above the zero line, that's bullish. So you see like these big bullish trends. But what I see is, okay, they sell off all these puts, and then yellow is the price. So then, okay, price starts to rise. Then they do a huge sell off here, and then price starts to rise again. Have another sell off here. Price kind of still meanders around the same spot, but I do think that we're going to have some other type of lift off period pretty soon here, going into next week, especially based on earnings and whatnot. Just kind of like the calm before the storm. So I think that's pretty much it for the premiums and whatnot. So the only other thing that we'll look at is like what are the profit potentials. Tori, what's up? What's up, dude? So the options here, let's say June 20th. Maybe look at like July 18th too. So price is currently at $29. So let's say you have some type of out the money call. Let's call it 50. I don't know. 50. Those are like $36 right now. And let's say you have three of them. And then you can basically see like a range. What I said earlier, like my targets, I'm gonna be taking profit like strategically. So somewhere around 60, somewhere around 120. And then in like if it gets to like the 200 to 400 range, then I'm going to be taking profit pretty aggressively. And I don't think those numbers are outlandish at all at this point, just based on what I've seen. So let's do, let's say $50 to 700. And this is all hypothetical. It's based on like three contracts. Profit and loss, we'll switch it to that. So let's say you have just three contracts and it gets up to, and you just, hey, I'm out by the time it gets to like 120-ish. Well, at that point, you're thoroughly in the money, and like that's a profit of 24K. That's pretty good based on, I mean, probably paying, I don't know what your strike is, but you probably only paid like less than 100 or close to 100 for each contract. So that's not terrible. But then, like I said, reason I'll be taking a lot of profit in here is, like people who are playing the options and playing other stuff. You start getting into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for profit, and most people like they're like, okay, well, I'm pretty satisfied with that. So you will start seeing more selling as you get into these 200 to 600 range, just because again that starts to be a lot more like, all right, people see that psychological number of like 600 and whatnot, or they have a whole bunch of stock that they just bought straight up and not in options and whatnot. Um, I think that's when a lot of retail will start to, capitulating and going ahead and getting out. I mean, diamond hands is one thing, but at the end of the day, I'm here for profit. I don't care to round trip this bag at all. Like, if you waited all this time, you definitely want to get some profit out of it. So that's what I'm thinking. Like I said, probably start taking profit somewhere around like, initial maybe like 10% of what you got at 60 something. Then around like the 120s and whatnot, you can start taking a little bit of profit, and then if it starts going higher and higher than that, then 200, maybe like 200 take off 30%, then 400 another 20%, and 600 until you're essentially maybe you have like 10% that's remaining, and then that if you want to let it just run to crazy valuations, you can do that. But we'll see. Like that's kind of there's no I don't have a crystal ball. I don't really know. I'm just trying to really anticipate where things could turn around or where they could do this and the third. But that's kind of what my overall strategy is for taking profit here. I don't think that this is one that's going to last too much longer. It's been super quiet this entire way through, like we kind of talked about earlier. This thing has been in a range for a year, a very tight range, like literally between $20 and like $30, just bouncing up and down like a ping pong. But the thing is, it's on the outside of this. It finally broke out of this bull flag. It's been in for 4 years, so like that's significant. Even down here, like when Roaring Kitty came back, it broke through it a little bit, but that takes a lot of energy to get from here to here. So I anticipate when he comes back, he's not going to have to fight through all this. Like it's not going to have to fight through all this resistance to get up here. Now that it's kind of on the upside, it's kind of made it out of this. That all that this would have taken, all the pressing down, um, that's going to allow it to go up to way higher valuation. So even if I say something like this, like just to show, this is kind of like a trend based thing. You talk, I mean, people have heard about Fibonacci and all this other stuff. So this is something that you can use to see, like, all right, well, where are some potential price points? So here's your zero line, like, this is the run up, and then you see where, okay, well, where did it come down to? This is your zero line. And what most people target is somewhere around one, anywhere between like 0.76 and one. But you see, like, all right, well, if they're targeting one, that's saying 1,700. But realistically, if you get to about 200 to 600, like I said, this is my big kind of take profit area right here, 200 to 600. Just because of the fact that I think there will be a lot of movement here to where this was kind of a warning shot. This first one was a warning shot. This one was like the real initial shot. I think the second one will probably be a little bit bigger than that. I also don't know if it'll all happen at one time, which I'm thinking it could be a little bit delayed. But if that's the case, it kind of gives you more options to be able to, maybe take profit here. Maybe it comes down for a little bit. Maybe you buy up a little bit more here. And I do think it's just going to start continuing to wave for the next maybe month or two. But all I'm saying is that those 200 to 600 numbers, those are not unrealistic, just based on the trend. If we're assuming that this is going to go up pretty quickly, which I am. So, yeah, you got the 0.5 movement. Like I said, somewhere around like 125. I talked about taking money at a little bit of somewhere around 60, 70, somewhere around there. And then, like I said, you have these two. So those numbers aren't really coming from nowhere. Like those are kind of the realistic targets that you can take. So, and once it starts getting into like the $1,000 range, well, you're not gonna have too many people that are really holding on. So your only goal here is to not be the last person holding the bag. You don't have to get the tip top, the number one price or whatever. It's like your goal should be to, all right, well, let me take out money along the way. If I get 70% of this move, then I'm good. Like you should be able to be fine. And then you move on to other shit. I'm not gonna talk about GameStop too much more after this. Like once we get past this, because I think at that point you'll have enough money to just throw it into Bitcoin or throw it into something else and then just kind of chill. So that's really all I got. Did y'all have any questions or? How do I do that? Some share. Yeah, no, that's pretty much it for me. So not really in the environment to talk. My bad. Well, that's all good.
But no, that made a lot of sense. I appreciate you kind of doing a step by step of where you think things are going and when. But yeah, I think like you said, is the next 1 to 2 weeks should be hopefully, you know, it could kick off something. So
Yeah. Well, and that's without going into any of like the memes and hype and any of that stuff. Like, there's some key dates. Like, obviously today is Roaring Kitty's birthday. 6-9 is something that they've alluded to for a long time. 6-10 is the actual earnings release date. 6-11, I don't think there's anything on 6-11, and then 6-12 is the shareholders meeting for both MicroStrategy and GameStop. So I don't think that was random that they both put them on the same day. I think you're going to see some crazy earnings coming out of GameStop, and then yeah, no, we'll just have to see. But I'm pretty optimistic about the next 2 weeks. Like I said, if something doesn't at least kick off in this next 2 weeks, well, then I am gonna start not losing hope, but it is gonna be like, what the hell? Like, I don't really, like we talked about it initially. It's like, I don't really. There's not really too much left. There's not too much rope left to or breadcrumbs left to follow. You had a couple hype dates in the beginning, like 420. That was a valid hype date, and then you had 512. Um, but like 620, that's really the only that's really 6-9 is the last like hype date, but 620 is that's like corporate earnings and shareholders and all that type of stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully for the best, and hopefully we all walk away with a good chunk of change in our pocket.
I hope so, man. We'll see. Like you said,
Yeah.
2 weeks or less, hopefully.
2 weeks or less. Lock the fucking. But yeah, man, that's all I got. I was just, and that's why I recorded too. I'll just post it in the group or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. So we'll see what it does.
All right. Well, I appreciate the rundown again.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hopefully, good news ahead.
good news ahead, man. All right. Well, y'all have a good evening and a good week at work. So,
All right. You too. Appreciate it.
all right, take care.